Greetings, Chillify, I am ready. Transmigrated as an assassin leader. I transmigrated, becoming the leader of an assassin organization. My mission, to maintain a dignified facade and train these young children into the most outstanding assassins. The first subject in their training program was dealing with and subduing aggressive birds. The next morning, I brought back a flock of ducklings, distributing one to each child, and set a rule. Their final assessment would be based on the number of duck eggs they produced. The second exercise focused on breath-holding underwater. I took the children to a water park, letting them play to their heart's content all day long, and used the opportunity to impart essential first aid skills and survival techniques. The third training phase was about the art of disguise. I organized a cute transformation challenge, with a lavish hot pot and barbecue feast as the prize for the winner. The fourth training module was on deception and role-playing. Just a few days later, they skillfully transformed into innocent, naive children, luring a group of human traffickers into a trap, thereby successfully dismantling a large-scale child abduction ring. When they received multiple commendation flags, my subordinates looked at each other, confused, and asked, "Leader, are we still an assassin organization after all?" I tried my best to justify, "Are benevolent assassins no longer assassins?" On my first day stepping into this world, I stood on the training ground, lost in thought about my life. Before transmigrating, I was a law-abiding citizen. The worst thing I ever did was secretly complain about my superiors behind their backs. Now, after transmigrating, I've become the leader of an assassination guild, dedicated to training the next generation of top assassins for the world of Mysao. The original owner of this body possessed a cold, cruel nature, completely opposite to mine. Yet, ironically, as soon as I arrived, I had a premonition that if I didn't maintain this image, death would surely come for me. That feeling of being weary and wanting to give up, yet driven by the instinct to survive, to struggle. It was truly exhausting. Leader, as per your instructions, the arena has been completed. Standing beside me was a tall man, standing perfectly straight. We've connected with the suppliers. They have wild wolves, hyenas, and Bengal tigers available. Please let us know which batch you'd like delivered tomorrow. I remained silent. All wild beasts. Where did this supply come from? Definitely illegal. Tomorrow's training content was for a group of young children to confront these fierce beasts directly. Anyone who survived for 30 minutes would be taken out of the arena. Those who didn't would naturally become their food. This afternoon, I had the chance to visit the children's quarters. The eldest among them was barely 12 or 13, and the youngest was only 5 or 6. How could these innocent little ones possibly face powerful predators like lions or tigers? I paused for a moment, deliberately trying to appear impassive, testing their reactions by declaring, "This batch of products falls far short of my expectations." The undercurrent of doubt I feared didn't surface, proving that this action hadn't damaged my prestige. Aaron, my usually quiet and cold aide, didn't show any doubt. He nodded and asked, "Then, big brother, would you prefer a different option?" I focused all my mind on visualizing. I needed a fierce bird of prey, capable of surviving well both on land and in water, that grew quickly, had a long lifespan, and especially possessed high discipline and convenient reproduction. Aaron immediately grasped my intention in an instant, blurting out, "Are you thinking of Nile crocodiles?" With a calm expression, I replied, "Yes, exactly. Ducklings." Aaron's face instantly became still, filled with utter incomprehension. I concluded my words with a decisive command. "Go to the farm and buy a flock of good purebred ducklings, specifically those capable of laying eggs." Although Aaron looked at me with bewilderment, due to his inherent obedience, he couldn't help but simply reply, "Yes, sir." To avoid losing my dignified facade, I immediately explained clearly, but without pause. Ducklings have countless natural enemies. They require very strict ecological conditions and are prone to illness. They need to learn how to create an optimal environment for the ducklings so they can reproduce. Caring for prey, observing their behavior, and making them drop their guard, these are the core qualities a hunter needs. Aaron was completely convinced by my words, his eyes even shone with enlightenment. he slowly spoke, "Big brother, your training methods are truly unique, unparalleled." I calmly accepted his praise. "Aaron, when I entrust you with a task, I always feel completely at ease." After Aaron disappeared, I continued to walk slowly around the training area, idly contemplating how to transform this terrifying place, once likened to a slaughterhouse. Training cold-blooded killers was utterly impossible. These children all possessed tragic fates. Assassin organizations targeted them because they had no relatives left, no other ties in the world. Lacking family love and guidance, they had been abandoned, abducted by criminals, and eventually sold to this very place. Every child was pale and thin, some even bore countless scars on their bodies, a truly heartbreaking sight. Killers are not allowed to have emotions, and these orphans were chosen precisely because they had no refuge, no place to belong. I headed towards the isolated rooms. This structure had just been completed and was still empty, with areas like water dungeons, electric shock rooms, and interrogation rooms. Every room lacked windows, plunged into dense darkness, designed specifically to deal with disobedient children later. I decided to ask Aaron tomorrow to add windows to all the rooms here. To leave such a high-quality 3-story Western-style villa abandoned, what a waste. The water prison machinery could be dismantled to become a swimming pool. The electric therapy room already had suitable medical equipment to create a clinic. As for this torture room, perhaps it should be turned into a tool shed, and the items inside could be used to build duck coops the next day. There were still many empty, isolated rooms. Perhaps some entertainment items should be added. My fondness for watching movies and playing video games hasn't changed. After a stroll, I decided to go downstairs. While deep in thought about whether to change the color of these stark, cold white light bulbs, I suddenly heard a very faint rustling sound, like someone was treading carefully. I quickly turned my head and was surprised to see a small shadow in the corner. It trembled and recoiled, seemingly trying its best to avoid my notice. I approached, recognizing it as a very small girl, with chubby, adorable cheeks, large teary eyes, trembling as she looked at me. Seeing how small the child was, I immediately guessed her identity among the children present today. The youngest 3-year-old girl was Nina. Gazing at the little one trembling like a ball of cotton, I intended to be gentler, but fearing I would lose my stern demeanor, I merely frowned and asked why she was here. According to the rules, the training area lights would turn off at 9:00 p.m., and no child was allowed to leave their resting area. Violations would result in severe punishment. Yes, instructor. Nina's tiny hand clutched her clothes, her voice still lisping. My brother said there were some small animals. Just as I was about to say something else, another series of rustling sounds came from behind me. I turned towards the sound and saw a boy with a panicked expression cautiously approaching. And the moment his eyes met mine and Nina's, his face turned ashen. This boy wasn't very big either, with a delicate face, estimated to be around 7 or 8 years old. Standing frozen in place, he clenched his hands, his shoulders trembling continuously, and he barely whispered, "Esteemed instructor." In the previous owner's memories, I searched and identified this teenager's name. Duwan. Nina's eyes suddenly lit up. The little girl looked pleadingly at the boy standing before her. Due to her tender age, she couldn't possibly imagine what punishments awaited her if her escape was discovered. Her innocence made her unaware, but Duwan knew full well. Duwan suddenly dropped to his knees before me with a thud, bowing his head to the floor, pleading earnestly. Esteemed instructor, it was I who lured Nina out. She knew nothing. All the fault is mine. I volunteer to bear the punishment in Nina's stead. No, it wasn't. Nina immediately widened her eyes, gestured wildly in front of me, then opened her palm to reveal a tiny biscuit inside. She explained, my brother said there were some small, hungry animals that needed to eat meat, and he told me to hide from them. Nina wanted to feed them first so they wouldn't pounce on me and my brother anymore. Instructor, please punish Nina instead. The more the little girl explained, the darker Duwan's face became. His eyes showed extreme despair. Inwardly, I sighed softly. Nina once had a loving and complete home, but after her parents died in an accident, she was sold to this place by her own relatives. As the youngest member, and having been doted on by her parents, she was still too naive, unaware of the harsh realities of the world. Thus, the other children here felt a strong desire to protect her. Yet, how could a harsh environment like this training ground contain human warmth? When the upcoming lessons even involved mutual slaughter, perhaps this pure affection among them would also cease to exist. Perhaps these children had been informed about tomorrow's confrontation with beasts, so they had told Nina to hide. Nina was too innocent. She believed that if she just brought food to the beasts first, all danger would vanish. Her solitary, sneaky escape and Do-Won's desperate search for her tonight were both incredibly reckless acts. However, luckily, the solitary confinement room hadn't been put into operation yet, and I had no intention of setting up any murderous training courses. Do-Won stood up. Imitating the cold tone of the previous owner, I spoke, "Both of you, follow me to receive your punishment." Nina's eyes suddenly glowed brightly. She quickly rushed to Do-Won and tightly clutched his hand. In her innocent mind, just being next to her brother made all fears disappear. Although Do-Won's face was pale, upon realizing I wasn't angry, he relaxed somewhat. I led the two children to the training area. Aaron and his subordinates were arranging living quarters for the flock of ducklings. Those large, brawny assassins were meticulously weighing out feed portions to ensure the correct amount was provided. Upon seeing my presence, Aaron was the first to straighten up and say, "Big brother." Then a chorus of "Big brother" echoed, and Aaron's eyes turned to the two children standing behind me. I calmly stated, "These youngsters have committed a few minor errors. I intend to punish them." Aaron nodded repeatedly, then gave me a look that implied, "I understand." "Big brother is truly wise and formidable," he seemed to convey, then led his subordinates away. At that moment, upon seeing the flock of snow-white ducklings before him, Do-Won was utterly stunned. When he told Nina they were small animals, he genuinely didn't expect the opponents they had to face would be a flock of ducklings. Nina's eyes also widened, sparkling, as if she desperately wanted to rush over and caress the ducklings. I maintained a cold expression and said, "Nina, didn't you say the little animals would be hungry? Then your punishment and Do-Won's is to diligently prepare their meals tonight. Don't let them starve and don't overfeed them. Make sure they are happy and prepared for tomorrow's training." Do-Won looked perplexed. Nina seemed like she wanted to cheer, but seeing my expression, she restrained herself and nodded rapidly. "I will be right here to monitor you two. Absolutely no laziness allowed." I slowly added, "If I catch either of you slacking, I will make you personally bathe each and every duck. Only after you've finished will you be allowed to sleep. Nina will try her very best. Do-Won? Yes." Early the next morning, when I stepped into the kitchen area, upon seeing what the chefs were preparing, I immediately frowned. What in the world was this monstrosity? Not even a hint of seasoning. How could I make children eat dry, hard bread that could easily choke them, along with boiled meat, early in the morning? Before coming here, a friend of mine was a kindergarten teacher. I had experience working with her on menus, so very quickly I completely changed the menu. At the same time, I instructed the dining hall to follow the new menu I had just created from then on. Because my prestige in this place was so great, the chef didn't even dare to question it, only respectfully obeying. To avoid tarnishing my image, I immediately gave a reason. Providing fully for their material needs can foster their loyalty better. That way, they won't betray the organization for petty gains later. Children should be well cared for. They need to be shown what is right, otherwise, they can easily be lured and swayed. The chef suddenly enlightened, his eyes filled with admiration. Were these assassin organization members really so easily deceived, or was it because I had the protagonist's halo? Because I had already informed Aaron that I had worked today and let the children sleep in a bit longer, I had summoned the construction team contacted yesterday. I took a walk around the training ground, pointing out the areas that needed repair. The construction team was brought here blindfolded. Initially, they were extremely hesitant, not daring to make direct eye contact, but after a few exchanges, their spirits lifted considerably. "It seems you intend to turn this place into a water park." Upon reaching the deep water area among the 4 diverse training zones, the construction team leader continuously nodded. "This design is truly excellent." I immediately became vigilant, instantly adopting a cold, emotionless expression to maintain my position. "That is for diving practice." The leader seemed to have more to say, but witnessing my demeanor, he suppressed it. They specialized in projects for organizations like ours, a highly professional team that understood the limits of speech, what to say and what to keep silent. After I had presented all the required items, the construction team confirmed the work schedule, then were blindfolded again and moved to another location. Assuming the children had finished their meal, I entered the assembly area on the training ground. A group of children stood silently in rigid formation. The space was perfectly still. Aaron stood to one side, reading a list. Upon seeing me, he bowed respectfully. I nodded indifferently in return. With a glance, I immediately saw Nina standing in the front row. Children are always like this. Just give them a piece of candy, treat them a little kindly, and they'll overlook your previous indifference, forming an unspoken bond and trust. At this moment, Nina's eyes sparkled, and she subtly smiled at me, pursing her lips. When I looked her way, she greeted softly, "Hello, teacher." The teenagers standing next to her suddenly paled at that greeting. Yet, they dared not make any gesture, only fixed their wary gazes on me, as if fearing that in a moment I would inflict a tragic end upon Nina right then and there. However, I only glanced at Nina for a second, then nodded slightly as a signal. "Let's go." Leading the children to the challenge area, I gestured towards the flock of snow-white ducklings and clearly stated, "From now on, your mission is to train these animals. Each of you will choose one, form pairs, and ensure both their survival rate and their reproductive capacity. The main content of the final exam will be based on the successful hatching rate of the eggs." The space suddenly fell into absolute silence. The previously tense faces of the young men and women immediately turned to bewilderment. "Is that all? Are they really ducklings?" This was completely contrary to what they had imagined, from crocodiles to leopards. Nina's face brightened, and she delightedly spoke, then quickly hugged a snow-white duckling. "I told you, it's just raising ducklings." She looked up at me and asked solemnly, "Teacher, are we allowed to name these ducklings?" I maintained my indifferent demeanor and curtly replied, "Sure." Immediately, Nina excitedly chatted with those around her. "Duwan Jeej, my duck is named Snowflake. What about yours?" "Mine." Duwan paused for a moment, glancing at me observantly, and only when he was sure I showed no special reaction did he purse his lips and say, "Nina, you help me name it, okay?" Witnessing the two children casually talking and petting the ducklings as if no one else was around, right in front of me. The other children, who had been standing rigidly still behind them, now began to show clear astonishment in their eyes. A few moments later, eagerly invited by Nina, they gradually and timidly took a step forward. As I maintained my calm expression, the younger children also boldly began to choose their ducklings. I subtly noticed that among them was a girl who seemed to be the leader of the group. She even subtly maintained order here and was the last to choose a duck. The girl was tall and slender, her face delicate but showing little emotion, her hair neatly cut short, her limbs thin but hinting at muscles, and her fingertips bore thin calluses. Though quite young, she exuded a strong, aggressive aura, like a sharp dagger just unsheathed. That was Luna. In my mind, her name, which always topped every training session, clearly appeared. I kept an expressionless face, quietly observing her every move. Due to overseeing the renovation work, I couldn't personally handle daily supervision. Therefore, I needed to find a reliable person capable of caring for the children well. Aaron and his subordinates were not suitable for this job. Because despite their loyalty, they were still limited in their way of thinking, had no experience raising children, and could very well accidentally harm the little ones. Even in such a strictly guarded and disciplined environment, the presence of an innocent, naive girl like Nina, or the precious friendship shown by Duwan going out to find her, clearly indicated that the atmosphere among these children was very harmonious, with no cutthroat competition as the previous owner had predicted. Finding someone capable of both meticulously providing for the children's needs and making them willingly obey without intimidation, while also excellently carrying out all my requests without much questioning the class leader, was the perfect choice. The moment they realized my intention to speak privately with Luna, the children, who had been more relaxed, suddenly showed signs of panic and unease. Some younger children were not old enough to hide their true emotions, while the older ones unconsciously moved a little closer. Contrary to the chaos of the other children, Luna was the calmest. She seemed unfazed by the crowd's reaction, quietly and obediently following me out of the training area and speaking, "Esteemed instructor, Luna." I maintained a calm expression. "Considering your training results, I have decided to temporarily assign you the position of arena manager, primarily responsible for the daily duckling domestication plan for them." Without delay, I meticulously outlined the schedule, testing methods, and rules for rewards and punishments. It wasn't until I finished speaking that this usually quiet girl slightly raised her head, her eyes revealing a subtle astonishment. After all, she was only a 12-year-old child. No matter how mature she tried to appear, in that moment, she couldn't hide her innocent confusion. I paused for a moment and said, "I've been busy with other matters recently and can only occasionally check on the arena." "Can you handle it?" Luna replied simply. "I can." In just a few words, she confirmed her ability to complete the assigned task. It was no wonder she was considered the sharpest tool, destined to be a key figure in the future of the assassin organization, according to the original's assessment. Yet, even a resolute Luna couldn't help but be taken aback and astonished when faced with the schedule I announced. Wake up and have breakfast at 8:00 a.m. Then, warm-up exercises and jogging to enhance physical fitness. The usual 9:00 a.m. class will be changed to free time, as the classroom renovations aren't complete. During this period, you can feed the ducklings or play games together. All activities will be organized by Luna. I had provided her with a list of suggested activities compiled from group games for preschoolers and elementary school children. Lunch will be at exactly 12:00 p.m., followed by a rest period, napping until 2:30 p.m. Afterward, you will continue with duckling training. 5:30 p.m. is dinner, and since the common living area is still under renovation, the evening will continue to be free time. Aside from planned physical and survival skills training, most of the remaining time will be for optional activities. The breakfast the children enjoyed in the dining hall today was many times better than the raw food they had been given before. Initially, Luna simply thought this was just a sumptuous meal prepared for an execution, like the Last Supper described in the stories of Jesus. As for the ducklings Nina and Du-One mentioned, she simply believed the instructor had another ulterior motive. Because such good things could not possibly appear in this place, a truth she had realized long ago. However, when she personally saw the pure white, soft-as-cotton ducklings and heard the detailed plan from the instructor, she felt a slight bewilderment. Completely opposite to the previous rigorous training curricula, this truly felt like a children's puzzle game. Even with her inherent steadfastness, she couldn't suppress the urge to ask for the reason. And I gave a perfectly logical explanation. "You are talents I painstakingly sought out and brought back. Those harsh training programs would wear out your health too early. Let's wait until you're a bit more grown." I noticed that the constraints of the image I had to maintain seemed to be loosening. For now, I only needed to casually resolve this situation with a few impromptu justifications. As for the future, I'd cross that bridge when I came to it. I lowered my eyes to look at Luna. This girl seemed different from the other children. Unlike children like Nina, who might have experienced a little joy, this girl had never known happiness. When I coincidentally caught Erin bringing other children back to the headquarters, even though she wasn't exposed, the girl decided to leave her hiding place among the scraps, asking to come along. Although Erin at that time exuded an aura of not being a good person, the girl was on the verge of exhaustion from hunger. Life on the run could not continue. I had thoroughly investigated her past. She grew up in a feudal family that favored sons over daughters, then was sold to a wealthy man with strange hobbies. The merchant provided her with a proper education. After all, torturing a naive country girl wasn't as interesting as tormenting a carefully raised noble lady. At first, Luna didn't realize how she was existing. She endured suffering without understanding why. But once she began to gain awareness, discern right from wrong, and understand the need to resist, she sank deeper into a seemingly inescapable black hole. She successfully escaped, but had nowhere left to turn. The merchant had sent people to search every corner of the city, secretly hunting for her. In that situation, only Aaron, who at first glance seemed no different from a villain, was capable of taking her in. Aaron's decision wasn't to end her life, but to bring her back to his place. The previous owner, seeing that Luna wasn't bad, decided to keep her. Whether this choice was right or wrong might not have been ascertainable before, but from the moment I appeared, that surely had to change. This was an era where all rules had disintegrated. That's why the merchant dared to play with the girl and why bizarre-sounding organizations like the Assassin Syndicate could exist. Nevertheless, it didn't matter. If social order collapsed, it could be re-established. Even if I couldn't do it, someone else would. I suddenly asked, "What do you plan to name your duckling?" Luna froze for a moment, but accustomed to following instructions, she thought for a bit and replied, "Little Lynn." Even though it sounded like a perfunctory name, I didn't hesitate to praise it. Lynn, as in Lynn from Lamin, meaning dawn breaking after a dark night, a beautiful name. Luna was surprised once more, then looked up at me. The innocence in her eyes remained intact, untouched by the surrounding darkness. I reached out and gently stroked Luna's head, saying, "Take good care of your duckling, okay? I believe you will still achieve the highest results in the tests." At the same time, I secretly justified my action. A capable leader often knows how to build trust, and to train loyal, dedicated assassins, gentleness can sometimes be crucial. Therefore, this action obviously couldn't be seen as undermining my prestige or image. I organized a general meeting of the syndicate that hadn't happened in a long time. All subordinates were present, looking refreshed and radiant. Their increasingly leisurely and comfortable lives had made these big, obedient men much gentler and more honest. The main content of today's meeting was quite simple. The training area had been completely renovated, the ducklings were all thriving with smooth feathers, and the children were becoming more active and cheerful. It was time to focus on education. Of course, I couldn't just arbitrarily abduct teachers for instruction the way I hired the construction team, because we had our own specialized construction team, but there were no teachers specifically tasked with educating an assassin organization. Over the past few months, under my control, the number of contracts the assassin organization accepted had significantly decreased, and all assigned targets were serious criminals. In the current era, assassins were accepted to exist, or rather, no one cared about these issues. Although the rules here weren't entirely transparent, since it was the pre-existing setup of this world, I had to force myself to accept the reality that my subordinates would kill others. At the same time, I proactively guided the assassin organization to change its mode of operation. In the past few months, I had dedicated more effort to developing other business ventures, and for some unknown reason, everything went unexpectedly smoothly. At least we no longer had to worry about food and clothing. Adapt to it, understand it deeply, and then gradually transform it. When there was no other choice, overthinking became useless. However, now, choosing teachers became the top priority, surpassing regular tasks. I slowly asked a subordinate standing nearby, "What were your academic results?" The subordinate looked confused. "Big brother, I only finished elementary school. Are you asking about my elementary school performance?" I remained silent. Then I distributed a survey, and when I collected it, the results were as expected. The number of people with educational qualifications was very small. Even the person with the highest educational background, named Nobel, had only completed 2 years of high school. Yet, I entrusted him with the important task of teaching mathematics. Thinking it over, this made sense. Finding a university student in this syndicate would be truly strange. The original owner, despite receiving extensive training, did so through tutors and never experienced a university environment. And it had been so long since they finished their schooling. How could they still remember that knowledge? However, fortunately, in the course of carrying out missions, they had the opportunity to visit various lands. Experience from practical trips was far more valuable than reading books, and in many practical fields, they proved more knowledgeable than anyone. Although my goal wasn't to prepare these children for exams, I believed that education played a crucial role. Knowledge had the power to broaden minds and at least gradually help them become aware of the world around them. Therefore, after much consideration, this group of assassins had to take on the crucial role of teaching. After months of continuous brainwashing from me, coupled with their inherent loyalty, they had formed a core principle. Our big brother is intellectually superior. Every word Big Brother says is accurate, and every action Big Brother takes has a profound reason. I also introduced a mandatory rule. At the end of each semester, teaching quality would be assessed, and students would be asked to vote for their favorite teacher. The teacher with the lowest score would face punishment, while the top performer would receive a worthy reward. Aaron, who possessed keen observational skills and was good at disguise, frequently visited various lands to learn about local cultures and people. I assigned him to be in charge of geography. After the meeting, he quietly went to buy a large quantity of geography teaching tools and began preparing his lessons. Realizing that Aaron served almost as my assistant and shouldn't be given too many tasks, I didn't schedule many geography lessons. But one thing that surprised me greatly was that the teacher most loved by the students was Aaron. My subordinates were not formally educated and particularly poor in pedagogical methods. Thus, when they first stood in front of a class, most were hesitant, stammering. However, Aaron was an exception. He couldn't even explain the climate rules in detail, so he shifted to recounting his experiences during missions. When I dropped into audit, I immediately heard him recounting a trip to Northern Europe, where he witnessed the aurora borealis, and he even showed pictures he had taken. Although deep down, I knew perfectly well that he had cropped half the photo, the lower part being a scene of scattered, mangled bodies, and its original purpose was for a mission report. But the children were unaware. They continuously gasped in awe, their eyes shining brightly. Even Luna was the same. Luna, whom I had appointed as class president, also gazed at the magical array of colors in the night sky, her face revealing a clear longing. Children have a very special sensitivity. Even though my personality was always ice cold, and my words were often not pleasant to hear sometimes, using the excuse of future training, sometimes saying to wait until they grew up, they seemed to sense that I harbored no ill will towards them. Now, whenever she saw me, Nina would smile brightly and cheerfully greet, "Instructor." And Do-Won had also become much more confident and at ease. Some highly cautious children maintained their wary attitudes, but that didn't diminish their enjoyment of their current lives. When I took them to explore the functional rooms like the common room, classrooms, and infirmary, though they said nothing, their eyes sparkled with curiosity mixed with delight. Luna had performed her assigned tasks even better than expected. Every duckling was meticulously cared for, and many had even started laying eggs. I instructed them on how to incubate eggs, and so these little ones actually used the incubator I bought to carry out the hatching process. Only Do-Won succeeded in hatching an egg. He was meticulous and persistent, plus a bit of luck. When the tiny duckling broke out of its shell, all the other children cheered with joy. That was life. Nurturing, caring for, and valuing living beings. That was the crucial objective of the initial training course I designed. All the children had developed deep affection for their duckling friends, and their favorite daily activity was cuddling their ducks out in the sun. So when Do-Won won first place, I gave gifts to the children. All of them had previously written down their wishes on small pieces of paper during psychology class. Some wished for dolls, others for snacks, some for books, and one even longed for the stargazing telescope Aaron had mentioned. I bought all those items and handed them to each child one by one. That very day, the children gathered around the telescope I bought, intently listening as Aaron instructed them on how to identify the North Star. For an assassin, facing countless dangers was unavoidable. Therefore, the ability to determine direction and time was considered a paramount lesson. The original owner also possessed this ability. Honestly, I felt the previous owner had an extremely rigid, mechanical persona. Memories of her seemed to only consist of core events, while all trivial details and everyday aspects were blurry, making it impossible for me to recall them clearly. To put it bluntly, there were only words, no images, just like a pre-installed plot point. I once wondered if an individual named the original owner truly existed. Since setting foot in this world, I had also experimented with a few boundary-testing behaviors to verify my hypothesis. I had a feeling that the original owner seemed to be an entity formed from nothingness, without a soul. And then, for some unknown reason, I was chosen by some entity to become her soul. However, it was clear that the entity that chose me and the consciousness demanding I adhere to this persona were on opposing fronts. Because the original owner and I, apart from being of the same female gender, had almost no other similarities. For this reason, I soon realized I lacked something crucial, a name. Here, everyone seemed to unconsciously omit calling me by my name. Aaron and the others called me Big Brother, and the kids called me Instructor. Not a single person had ever called out my name, not even I myself could. I couldn't utter it. Every time I tried to speak it, I felt as if I would die instantly. This persona demanded certain mandatory conditions, 2 main points. First, the training plan set by the original owner, and second, this issue related to the name. The previous owner had established 4 main training plans for this year, which, according to this role, absolutely could not be violated. Therefore, when I asked Aaron to arrange the second exercise, a survival challenge, he addressed me as Big Brother. I immediately told him not to call me that anymore. Aaron was visibly stunned. With his impressive height, straight back, handsome eyebrows, bright eyes, and high nose bridge creating sharp facial features, combined with his usual quietness, Aaron's overall appearance should have depicted a cold-blooded assassin. But it didn't, because his appearance was not at all scary. Moreover, his eyes were especially clear. An assassin and crystal clear should be completely unrelated, yet he possessed such purity. For him, the world consisted only of black and white, adhering to a single principle: obey me. However, if previously he easily grasped some instructions from the former owner, now it became extremely difficult, sometimes even showing confusion on his face. Thus, Aaron, who had always meticulously obeyed me, after a moment of hesitation, still blurted out, "Young miss." That form of address sounded like it belonged to the underworld, and for some reason made me think of a domineering gangster princess. I told him to add my given name. Aaron replied firmly, "How can I call young miss by her personal name like that?" I relented. "Then just add my surname, will that do?" He looked bewildered, mixed with a little pain, putting a hand to his forehead, as if trying his best to search his memory for something. That vague unease, which had rarely appeared in the past few months, became exceptionally clear in this moment. Just as the suffocating feeling was about to become unbearable, I suppressed my discomfort, smiled, and declared, "Then you must remember carefully, I am an Aegeon." Crack. At that very moment, a seemingly tiny object shattered. It was as if someone had yanked me out of water over my head, allowing me to breathe fresh air. I was right to gamble. I had successfully claimed my own given name. This also meant that the confinement of the character's persona had diminished significantly for me. Aaron seemed to struggle for a moment. "Young Miss Gian, young miss." My objective was achieved. I no longer made it difficult for him. I calmly replied, "Just call me Big Brother as before." Aaron seemed visibly relieved. "Yes, Big Brother." He paused for a moment, apparently afraid I'd misunderstand, and then whispered, "The subordinates also agreed to address you as young miss." I chuckled. "I know." What people called a survival challenge, in my view, was actually the most practical type of training. Specifically, what the original owner valued most was breath-holding and enduring lack of oxygen. Because water is ubiquitous in life, practicing how to hide underwater is a mandatory skill for assassins. Although it wasn't to the extent of requiring the children to experience deserts, jungles, deep seas, or icy mountains to face harsh living environments, I thought it was still necessary to teach them the essential things to note in special terrains. Of course, the special environment simulation area in the training ground had been transformed by me into a water park. The water amusement park that the construction team personally confirmed, but which I adamantly refused to acknowledge. By July, it finally had a chance to be useful. I had invested heavily in building this water park. The construction team worked tirelessly, making me think it would be entirely feasible to open a real amusement park later. After all, this was the first time they had seen such a large-scale entertainment facility, so all the children I brought couldn't help but be amazed. Except for Luna. However, Luna clearly also froze for a moment. After putting on the swimsuits I bought for them, Luna approached me, speaking on her own initiative for the first time. "Esteemed instructor, I once saw an amusement park similar to this outside. Perhaps the other children, due to their impoverished circumstances, had never seen one, but Luna was not like that. She recognized this as an amusement park. I replied curtly, to familiarize the children with the water environment. After that, she remained silent, just lowered her eyes slightly, and the corner of her mouth quickly turned up. She must have been smiling. This child had changed a lot since I first met her. At least she looked more energetic. Though still taciturn, she was much livelier than before. Her hair had reached her shoulders. I noticed she kept stroking her hair, guessing it was due to an itchy neck, so I spoke. "Your hair has gotten long. I bought hair ties. Later, have your friends line up to choose some." When the children first joined, the previous owner had instructed subordinates to cut all the girls' hair short, ear length, to avoid hindering training. Hearing this, Luna nodded and asked, "Do we need to cut our hair?" I countered, "Do you want to cut it?" Luna glanced at me and replied, "I will follow instructor's words." I waited silently, and as expected, a few seconds later, she whispered, "I don't want to cut my hair." "Then don't cut it," I said, stroking her silky hair. "But you should tell your friends too. Whoever wants to cut it, let me know. I also know how to cut hair." Luna's lips curved slightly again, and this time the smile was no longer secretive. She even winked. "Yes, sir." Go train. I almost blurted out the wrong thing, quickly correcting myself. "There are safety personnel stationed here. Remember to pay attention. After training, you still have lessons to learn. To teach them first aid and basic survival skills." Luna nodded at me and led the whole group into the water park area. A group of subordinates followed closely behind me, taking turns on duty to ensure safety. Soon, I heard a soft voice, "Big brother, I want to join the training too." The person continued to explain, "I feel I've been slacking lately and need to train." "Me too. Big brother, it's been so long since we had missions at sea. Perhaps we need to get used to the water again." I tried to suppress my laughter, pretending to be very serious, and said, "Then you all arrange your training schedule yourselves. Can we do it right now?" "Sure," I said without much thought, conveniently reminding them, "but don't take turns from the children." It was clear that while my subordinates looked quite serious and had been through countless battles, their actual age wasn't very high at most, just over 20. Due to the original rules, older individuals were managing other businesses outside. Therefore, these young men in their early 20s quickly blended into the fun with children just a few years old. Usually, they rarely had recreational activities and had never visited such amusement places. Under my guidance, they were now much bolder. Some even actively picked up water guns and joined the water fight with the children. A boy, after getting soaked by a water gun, shouted, "You guys shoot so well, we give up." One of my subordinates said proudly, "Of course, my shooting skills are the best." "Oh no, second best, I can't surpass Aaron." Unexpectedly named, Aaron still stood calmly beside me. I asked him, "Aren't you going to join the training?" Aaron looked at me, his unspoken meaning clear. If I ordered him, he would obey. Just then, Nina, with her small yellow duck-shaped float, trotted over and asked, "Instructor, shall we train together?" She pointed at a 4-person inflatable boat in the water where Do-Won was sitting awkwardly and said, "We're missing 2 more people. Instructor Aaron, instructor, can you 2 train together?" I turned to Aaron and asked, "Will you join us?" The answer was definitely yes. Nina was still very small. When I hugged her onto the inflatable boat, her cheeks were flushed, her face filled with indescribable joy. Aaron also followed suit. His long arm reached out, shielding all 3 of us, as if fearing we would fall off the boat. After we went for a ride, many little ones gathered around Aaron and me, their eyes filled with longing. "Instructor, can we also join the training?" I waved my hand, signaling nearby subordinates to come and form a safe barrier. At the end of a day of full-hearted play, I had someone bring out the chilled watermelon and prepared mung bean dessert. I instructed the children on first aid while distributing their portions. The subsequent training sessions were much gentler. The children were taken to an indoor ice rink to skate and build snowmen. They played freeze tag and hide-and-seek in the forest or built sandcastles on the beach. Because these children had never been out to explore the world, I could only use this method to help them broaden their knowledge. This was an isolated island. Moreover, as an assassin organization like ours and the children's past of being shunned by society, rushing to expose them to the outside world would be counterproductive. We needed to wait until their identities were gradually cleaned up. To achieve this required a long-term plan. Haste was not an option. When autumn arrived, the weather grew colder, restricting outdoor activities. Therefore, I equipped more display devices, showing some external materials every day, with the aim of helping them grasp the current world situation. The content included the latest news, famous entertainers, and various cultural forms like music, dance, and cinema. To complement that, I officially initiated the third training phase, specializing in disguise skills. Although called disguise, the core was to teach them how to mimic behavior and identify differences. Moreover, I bought many warm clothes and skincare products, patiently instructing them on detailed skincare methods to prevent dry, chapped skin or chilblains during winter. But compared to these concerns, what worried me more was the risk of them getting sick. However, I clearly realized my worries were completely unnecessary. Although I had changed most of the legacies left by the previous owner, I persistently maintained and did not allow them to neglect one aspect: physical training and skills related to survival weapons. Combined with the children's inherent diligence, their current physical condition was superior, and their motor skills were extremely flexible. Every child was robust and agile. Perhaps it was partly due to the golden touch element of the storyline. Except for the very young children, the rest were perfectly capable of hand-to-hand combat with adults without any difficulty. Not for any other reason, the main reason was that the context of the assassin organization we belonged to had shaped them not to be ordinary children. Combined with the gradually disintegrating social order, continually protecting them in a safe environment would actually be a disadvantage. At the end of the year, I specifically bought a large quantity of beef, lamb, along with complete equipment for hot pot and grilling. Then, with the mini assassins, we placed iron pots on the stoves and started dipping meat. This hot pot meal was entirely prepared by the children themselves, because after I showed them cooking shows, they became fascinated and started teaching themselves to cook. Throughout the training area, white smoke drifted lazily, and cheerful laughter echoed continuously through the space. Due to the demands of my persona, or perhaps habit, even though my heart was filled with joy and relaxation, my face remained expressionless, only focusing on looking down and flipping the sizzling pork belly slices on the grill. Pork belly was sizzling, fat rendering on the grill. In the bowl was steaming hot stir-fried glass noodles. Beside it was a bubbling pot of shrimp and crab congee, supplemented with various clams. Just a sniff revealed an irresistible aroma. These sea fish, shrimp, and crabs were all the result of my organizing coastal seafood foraging trips for them during low tide. After all, this was an island in the middle of the ocean, so how could we miss the chance to have some fun at sea, right? Aaron stood beside me, skillfully removing the bones from the grilled fish and quietly offering the meat to me. I glanced at him and then offered him a piece of the cheese banana bread and roasted sweet potato I had just made, saying softly, "Here." Contrary to his cold exterior, Aaron was extremely fond of sweets. I had previously experienced harsh treatment as an employee, so now I absolutely refused to treat my subordinates poorly. After understanding each person's preferences, I ordered a large quantity of their favorite things. Perhaps due to their natural disposition, assassins often had quite simple minds, and Aaron even more so. Previously, their lives revolved solely around eliminating others on command, knowing nothing beyond that. Now, I had put all my effort into transforming the organization's operational model. They hadn't been out on killing missions for a long time, and I had even forced them to read many books. As a result, their eyes were no longer vacant but became much livelier. In the flickering firelight, I gazed at Aaron's eyes, now much gentler, and suddenly thought, "I told you to change the way you addressed me before, so why do you call me young miss?" He paused, then replied, "Young miss saved your subordinate's life. Your subordinate is inherently your servant." I searched my memories and finally recalled a detail. When Aaron was almost starving to death, I brought him home. "What servant are you talking about here?" I said. "I just wanted to find a friend to play with." "Yes," his eyes met mine. "Your subordinate is also young Mrs. Playmate." After the meal came the special performance I prepared for the children, cute transformation. Some kids imitated celebrities like Duwan. He had prepared meticulously, even changing into a costume to mimic an international star. Every frown and smile was identical. Indeed, this handsome boy, after disguising himself as a girl, became even more beautiful. Some imitated small animals like Nina. She tried her best to mimic her duckling, Snowflake, squatting down, puffing out her cheeks, and wearing a fluffy coat, looking truly innocent and adorable. Some decided to perform a play. For example, Luna, this girl was even more talented, directly imitating the everyday demeanor of all the children and instructors in the training camp. Even me. I saw her maintain a calm expression, but her eyes were not emotionless, as she told a small child standing next to her, "You did not follow the training schedule. Your punishment is that you won't get breakfast today." The other boy was also very witty, immediately rushing to hug Luna's arm and exclaiming, "Teacher, no?" This made everyone there burst into laughter. Even Luna couldn't help but smile. From the horizon, snow began to fall lightly, covering the landscape in a pristine white cloak. We began preparing warm milk and wine. When the liquid in the kettle started bubbling, I poured wine for the subordinates and milk for the children. Then, everyone gathered to chat. I spent most of the time listening, only occasionally responding with a few words, for example, when Nina said I was her favorite instructor. After a while of drinking, I began to feel sleepy, perhaps because I was too relaxed. Amidst the children's chattering, I leaned against Aaron, who was sitting next to me, and gradually drifted off to sleep. In my haze, I felt Aaron carefully cover me with a warm jacket and softly call out, "Young Miss Jian, young Miss Ine, thank you. I feel that you have once again saved me, saved all of us." Everyone loves life here. He paused for a moment, then continued, "The things that happened in the past, I no longer seem to remember clearly." I intended to say something, but I was genuinely too sleepy, hadn't even heard the end of what he said. I had completely fallen into a deep sleep. I cherished everything about the present and, stepping into the new year, I had a new goal. Although life on the island was good, being isolated from the outside world for too long was not feasible. I had to strive to bring everyone's lives back to a stable and peaceful state. The current situation outside was extremely unstable. However, in the East, there was a nation that steadfastly maintained law and order. Although not a superpower, the people living there felt extremely secure. I intended to take everyone there to settle down. When the whitewashing process was almost complete, I convened a meeting for everyone. In that meeting, I announced my plan, which seemed to quite surprise the subordinates. "Are we leaving this place? It's been so long since we've left anywhere." In fact, life on the island was still very good. "After we leave the island, does Big Brother intend to disperse us?" My recent actions had finally helped these absolutely loyal subordinates grasp my true intention, that I wanted to abandon the path of the sword and no longer continue assassination work. Of course, this needed to be carefully planned because, after all, assassin training was the core of the previous owner's image, almost the final boundary of reputation that couldn't be hastily destroyed. However, it was not an issue. Regarding this assassin aspect, I already had the next steps in mind. I saw the hesitant, wavering expressions of the subordinates before me and sensed their reluctance to part ways. They were all solitary individuals who had only found a little warmth from their connection and companionship, so naturally, they didn't want to be separated and scattered. "Absolutely not," I said, shaking my head. "I will buy a villa in the mountains. Everyone will still live together. It's just that each of you can also have your own life. Don't you want to step out into the outside world and experience it?" The space fell silent. Of course, they wanted to. I didn't believe they didn't long for a more peaceful life. Not wishing to sit and read books at a roadside cafe, not hoping to go to the cinema like ordinary people. Furthermore, the children's schooling also needed to be reconsidered. After all, we weren't experts in this field. I said, tapping the table lightly, "After we go out, we need to arrange guardians for them. Each of you should prepare yourselves to have a few more nieces, nephews, or younger siblings on your household registration." This time, a voice spoke up. "Then, can I take Nina?" Nobel, the math teacher, raised his hand and added, "Actually, I've wanted a little sister like that for a very long time." I smiled and replied, "Then we need to ask Nina first." Immediately after the meeting, I began to arrange matters related to identity documents for this group of people without official identities. This is not too difficult to handle. We just need to find a small country on the border, and we can easily complete all necessary identity documents. All the children had realized the truth that they were about to leave this place. Although there was some reluctance and unwillingness, after I promised that we could return here for summer and winter holidays, they became excited again. Teacher, will we get to see the aurora borealis? I really want to go to the cinema. A private screening just for me. Teacher, is there a zoo where we're going? Can we bring our ducklings? Because they were children, they were always full of curiosity about everything. When the return flight landed, I personally arranged for Luna to sit next to me. Except for Luna, all the other children were extremely excited about going on a trip. Although her outward appearance seemed calm and relaxed, I could clearly perceive the underlying anxiety and fear, along with a sense of hatred that overwhelmed both those emotions. Teacher, I understand that the books you gave us to read all say killing is wrong, Luna whispered. However, where I used to live, as long as you had status and power, you could take a life. No one cared, and the person wasn't punished by law. I gently stroked Luna's head and calmly told her, if you yearn for revenge, I will always stand by your side. Luna looked up at me. I continued, when no one takes responsibility for governance, we will build a sanctuary where everything is monitored. If killing is wrong, then let's create a world where human lives cannot be arbitrarily taken. According to the original plan, we were already one of the top powerful forces globally. By utilizing all resources, in my vision, Luna was perfectly capable of achieving this. Who said an organization specializing in assassination couldn't change the world? The restrainers of evil, hunters of justice, I said half jokingly, half seriously. Sounds impressive, doesn't it? Luna didn't smile. Instead, she pondered the statement very carefully. After a long while, she replied, I understand now. Thank you, teacher. I only softly replied with an What no one expected was that after just 1 month, we were indeed awarded a commendation banner, emblazoned with the 4 characters, restrainers of evil. The main reason was that during one of their outings, the children coincidentally encountered a case involving human traffickers. Immediately, Luna and Do-One quickly disguised themselves as naive children, ignorant of the world. Nina cooperated by acting and crying, Daddy, Mommy, successfully luring the traffickers into a trap, making them switch their target to the children's group. The subordinates I sent along to protect them, upon seeing the children's enthusiastic faces, voluntarily retreated. And then again, this group of youngsters, with an average age of only a few years, using only their physical strength and superior intellect, completely wiped out the entire human trafficking den. The police force issued praise. Simultaneously, the relatives of the rescued children were also immensely grateful, presenting many commendation banners. Even the press was present that day. We received countless compliments all morning, making our faces stiff from smiling. After patiently answering countless questions along the lines of, how are your children so talented, we finally had the chance to arrange the commendation banners at the villa. While tidying up, the subordinates, still somewhat dazed, suddenly came to their senses. Big brother, aren't we an assassination organization? But the little ones, hugging their ducks, tilted their heads and said, yes, but we are assassins. That's right, Luna said we're the best assassins. Teacher, the assassins you trained are definitely not ordinary ones. I couldn't help but laugh. So, assassins who act righteously aren't considered assassins? Crack. A clear sound echoed in my ears. Right at that moment, the invisible cage suddenly opened, and the last shackles unexpectedly shattered. Golden sunlight streamed in, everyone's faces beaming with smiles, and I, finally shedding my cold facade, revealed a bright smile. From now on, don't call me Big Brother anymore, because do you actually know my name yet? The name that could only be shared privately with Aaron could now be publicly announced to everyone. My name is Ine Jian. Appendix. Time flew by, another year closed. Nina's duck was now of the 5th generation. She and Do-One were fully recognized as Nobel's younger siblings and also earned the title of the most outstanding math students in the entire extended family. Yes, in her mind, they were truly an extended family. Although they had different names, genders, personalities, and backgrounds, these differences did not prevent them from being members of the same household. Sometimes she would look up at the brilliant starry sky and confide, Mom and Dad, I have a brother now. His name is Do-won. He's very kind. Dear Mom and Dad, I have another brother now. His name is Nobel. He's my instructor and also my math teacher. He's very funny. Don't worry about Nina, Mom and Dad. I have over 30 siblings now. But I'll whisper this to you. My favorite older sister is instructor. Grand instructor in Aegeon. I miss you very much, Mom and Dad, but it will probably be a long time until I see you again. I'm doing well. I hope you're both always healthy. After talking to the stars, Nina returned to her room. The room was decorated for her by big sister Luna, all in lovely pink, and even had a small nest for the ducklings. She loved it very much. Tonight, Nina hugged the new version of Snowflake and fell asleep. She needed to sleep early and study hard, because our righteous assassin clan has a new goal: to help big sister Luna accomplish her great ambition. We will change the world. It sounded so grand, Nina thought to herself, but we will definitely do it. Luna noticed that instructor Erin had a secret. She was the smartest child in the clan, and her maturity made it easy for her to spot unusual things about Erin. First, instructor Erin started to become absent-minded, suddenly smiling while walking. Although it was a very subtle smile, Erin had never smiled before. He was always emotionless. Even when bringing her back to the training base, he was as cold as ice. But his coldness was not like the instructor's. The instructor's coldness was merely an outward appearance, while instructor Erin's coldness was his inherent nature. Second, instructor Erin spoke more, especially when he was next to instructor Ine. He would stare at the instructor, then find ways to say a few extra words. Even more amusingly, instructor Erin could get shy. That day, when instructor Ine leaned against instructor Erin and fell asleep, instructor Erin quietly watched her, mumbled something, and then blushed. Do-won meticulously observed and also noticed this abnormality, even speculating. Is instructor Erin not feeling well? Should I ask him? Luna silently watched Do-won for a moment, then sighed. It turned out that only she knew that instructor Erin had feelings for instructor Ine, but when would instructor Erin ever confess? Luna rested her chin on her hand, her gaze fixed on instructor Erin, who stood quietly beside instructor Ine, protecting her, lost in thought. Another year passed. As usual, when everyone went to watch a movie together, she finally decided to help her brother, Erin, who was now part of her family. Erin G, Luna spoke up. Sister Ine is really popular. Just now, some people came over to talk to her. Erin seemed sad, his eyes downcast, but still hummed a yes. I will protect Ine. Luna subtly suggested, in my opinion, why doesn't Erin Jeej go over there and see? Erin frowned. They won't harm her. Then he stared at Ine Jeon until she seemed to have rejected those people and returned. His voice then sounded relieved. Let's go, let's buy popcorn. Hearing this, Erin smiled, asking nothing further. Well, it seems instructor Erin still has a long way to go to understand his own feelings. In a distant galaxy, two siblings, the progenitor gods, were in a meeting. Look at the world you created. It's on the verge of destruction again. I know, big brother. My power just recovered after being depleted. Didn't I immediately send someone in? Ine Jeon, who just suddenly died from overwork. How pitiful. Your early works were too rigid. She could only follow the persona of the female assassin boss. It's clear you didn't put your heart into it. This female boss is just a supporting character, right? Oh dear, with my blessings, this persona won't be able to bind her for long. Big brother, stop sighing. You have to believe in the person I chose, don't you? Look at Hyunwoo and Jaeyoon, whom I chose. Haven't they all saved worlds on the verge of collapse? Who is the star, the protagonist of this assassin world? I noticed you didn't give Ine Jeon any hints at all. Because that world is too ancient, it has established its own rules so firmly that my voice couldn't penetrate. Ultimately, who is the star? I don't even know anymore. Initially, I intended it to be Luna, but after she went through all those events, it seems to have awakened other stars. In short, everything has now become a murky mess. Look, it's starting to glow. Yes. The younger sister watched the world slowly brighten, a bright smile on her lips. Wonderful? How? Ine Jeon has succeeded. We have countless other worlds to attend to, you know, the older brother gently reminded. Don't get lost in gazing. Let's quickly get back to work. This is my first time taking on the role of a god. Music.